Well, I'm home alone, poor me, and Beth is out somewhere helping somebody with the sale of their land. And of course, uh, when I'm here on my own, it's a big place, which I love, but it sends me back to my books because I quickly get fed up of looking and browsing and scrolling down endless stuff on Facebook. So here's the obvious place when you get like that. Word of advice: you should look at this. I see that the camera is still doing things backwards, so I should tell you that this is quotes. This is a book called Quotes That Will Change Your Life, and it's full of very clever things that people have said who are regarded as being very clever. Now, it's in various sections, and one of the sections is on love. And as I'm missing my warrior princess, why would I not look at that section which is on love? Now, here's an interesting thing, and people that I've spoken to who are highly educated have always denied this. But it says, measured with magnetic field meters, the electromagnetic field that the heart produces is some 5,000 times more powerful than that created by the brain. So, when you get these movies like Rocky and they're very, very big on Rocky doesn't have your heart, there's an element of truth in that those things which come from the heart are actually very, very powerful. I did read once before that some time ago that there are pathways there is wiring in the heart that is similar to that which is in the brain. And this little thing that I've just read you about being measured with magnetic field meters, with a meter, in other words, they hook people up. Now, I've done a lot of things where they've hooked people up, and they've also hooked up, believe it or not, they've hooked up plants, and they can measure the resistance to a flow through the plant, and it will register on a meter. Well, that's another video, the kind of thing that happens like that. I wanted to do something about love, and I think it's widely acknowledged that more, irrespective of going to the moon, irrespective of every invention that's ever been made, more words have been written on the subject of love than any other. And one of the things that constantly comes up for me, because I'm married to a much younger woman than myself, and not just that, not dominantly that, it's more about being married to a Filipino. What's the special thing about Filipinos? For the few people that I know who are involved, married, together, partnering with a Filipino who are foreigners, the one thing that I notice is that they are passionately involved with their Filipina. That when they met, it was something magical. I remember someone telling me how he had been talking to a Filipina on, is it Skype? I never did the Skype thing myself. But when he met her at the airport, he thought that she was the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. Someone else who we introduced at one time, it didn't go all that well, but later it all turned around for this person. And we introduced them to this Filipina. and he said, "She's too beautiful for me." Later he changed on that, and they're together now. But my friends, Steve, he talks the same about his lady. My friend Michael talks the same. I was very touched the other day. Michael I meet a couple of times a week. He's from Manchester, originally from Manchester, the same as I am, and we were born just a few miles apart in Manchester. So we've now met as a result of being in the Philippines and as a result of this channel, and now we meet and chat at PP Coffee and have breakfast there. But the other day he was telling me of his immediate impression, and he didn't prefix it by, well, my immediate impression was, he didn't say that. He was recounting how he had been in a mall, and then he'd met these friends, and he was chatting to his friends, and then Bonnie came up and he saw her for the first time, and he said, "I was enchanted," which I thought was incredible, because it came out spontaneously. I remember for myself that when Beth and I met, we talked through the night in the hotel reception, because the earthquake of, 10 years ago or so now, the earthquake that hit Bohol hit Cebu, where I was staying, and Beth and I met during that time, and she came to the hotel, and we sat in the hotel, and every 10 minutes one of the earthquake alarms would go off again, and a trembler would start shaking a little, an aftershock, and we'd have to go and stand outside, and then it would be finished and we'd come back in. But even on the basis of that, we agreed that when I left, I was leaving the next day, and we agreed that we would not see anybody else. I knew that there was some reason there. Logic certainly couldn't help me out on that, but we agreed and we kept that agreement. And then when we met again, we didn't have any cleaning up to do. Someone else who comes to mind is Dean and Mickey, our friends Dean and Mickey, who came out and visited, a very short visit, and we spent some time with them. And it was obvious that it was not just hooking up. This, like my friend Michael describing his first sight of his wife, and they've now been together for, I think, in excess of 15 years, maybe 20 years, I'm not sure. But Dean and Mickey again is a Filipina, and they met in America. Dean is much older than Mickey, and they were together for a while before they got married. And I'm going to read something to you in a moment, which really describes the people that I know who have become enchanted by the Filipina. It's always a love affair, and it's a love affair often where the man spends a great deal of time in total confusion about what the heck happened. And if you watched a recent video where we were giving advice to somebody, and as an example, Beth started to tell about this other person who a couple of people involved, and there was one lady who had helped another lady to meet a foreigner that she knew, and then when the other lady got married, then she didn't stay good friends with the person who had brought this good fortune to her, because she had met this man and it had worked out and they were very happy together, and yet she was not happy with her friend for some strange reason. So it didn't sit well. But that person found a love affair, and it's the same with Dean and Mickey. It's the same for Beth and I. It's the same for Michael and Bonnie, and I know that there are more. Even Kevin, who is now with Lin, and they are very happy, and Lin has gone to join him in New Zealand, and that's another success story. But it's never an ordinary thing. It's more than an ordinary thing. So let me read you a couple of things, of quotations from the book. Of all forms of caution, caution in love is perhaps the most fatal to true happiness, and that's true. I can confirm that. So it says, love is the flower of life and blossoms unexpectedly and without law, and must be plucked where it is found and enjoyed for the brief hour of its duration. So sometimes we have these things and they don't last, and then thankfully most of the time, as far as Filipinos go, it really does matter. Perhaps the feelings that we experience when we are in love represent a normal state. Being in love shows a person who he should be. And it's that old phrase, isn't it? You often hear, it seems mostly men saying, because of her, she makes me want to be a better person. So it is clear that love is an intensely, it's an intense experience, and it doesn't always fade. Sometimes it goes on right to the end of time. Let me lighten it up a little bit and tell you of the devoted couple. Man and wife lived into old age, and the woman was the first to go, and she left the man bereft because they'd been together for 30 or 40 years. And she had always been the one who attended to their diet, and she had all of the right herbs and vitamins, and she made sure that he was very, very healthy. Well, he was heartbroken, and he was not long for this earth, and he died as well. And she met him at the gates, and she said, "Come along, let me take you and show you around." And she took him and she showed him around heaven. And she took him to this outcrop where she looked out over a vast plain of incredible beauty. In the far distance, he could see the blue ocean. Said, and there were lakes, and there were animals roaming peacefully and birds singing. It was such an incredible sight, an experience of beauty. And she said to him, "A penny for your thoughts." And he said, "I was just thinking, we could have been here years ago if it wasn't for you and your bloody ginseng." Anyway, let me read you this particular thing, that for the people that I know who are married and happily besotted with their Filipino wife, Dean and Michael and Stephen and anyone else and myself and my lovely lady. This was written by my favourite author, John Steinbeck, who just seemed to have a way of saying things so beautifully. A kind of light spread out from her, and everything changed colour, and the world opened out, and the day was good to awaken to, and there were no limits to anything, and the people of the world were good and handsome, and I was not afraid anymore. That was John Steinbeck, and I think you'll agree that's an enchanting way to put the meeting. So thank you for being with me on this little reminisce. It's a midday reminisce. Bye for now.